It begins with silence, not the peaceful kind, the dangerous kind. No birds, no insects, no distant herd crossing the valley, just wind, cold wind. It cuts across the frozen land and carries a message every human understands. There is nothing left to hunt. The tribe has already searched every valley they know. The strongest hunters left before sunrise. By sunset, they return exactly the same way they left, empty-handed. Again, nobody speaks. They don't need to. The faces around the fire say everything. Children are crying from hunger. Mothers pretend they are not hungry so the little food can go to someone else. Even the dogs have stopped expecting scraps. Winter has lasted longer than anyone remembers. The rivers are locked beneath thick ice. The berries disappeared months ago. The herds that normally pass through this valley never came. Every day the tribe becomes weaker, and every day the hunters walk farther. They are the best hunters anyone has ever known. They can track a wounded deer across frozen ground. They can smell smoke carried by the wind from miles away. They can throw a spear with terrifying accuracy, but none of those skills matter if there are simply no animals left. For the first time in generations, the hunters have no answer. Around the fire sits someone nobody has listened to in a very long time. An old woman. Her back is bent, her hands shake, her eyesight faded years ago. She cannot hunt. She cannot carry heavy loads. She walks slower than everyone else. By every rule of survival, she should have been left behind long ago. Many animals would have done exactly that. Wolves abandon the weak. Most primates rarely care for elderly members once they stop contributing. Nature is often brutally practical. But humans did something strange. Something almost no other animal does. They kept their old people alive. Not because they were strong, because they remembered. That single decision may have changed the future of our entire species. Tonight, it is about to save everyone. The old woman slowly stands. The younger hunters barely look at her. What could she possibly know that they don't? They have searched every direction. They know every stream, every cave, every game trail. But she quietly says something nobody expected. I've seen this winter before. The fire suddenly becomes silent, because no one else has. She remembers a winter from more than 60 years ago. A winter so harsh that entire families disappeared. A winter when the animals vanished exactly like they have now. Most of the tribe assumes she's confused. Memory fades with age. Everyone knows that, or at least they think they do. But modern science tells a very different story. Researchers studying traditional hunter-gatherer societies discovered something remarkable. Older members often remember rare events that younger people have never experienced. Massive droughts, unusual migrations, dangerous floods, plants that only bloom once every several decades. Knowledge that cannot be learned in a single lifetime. It can only be inherited from someone who survived it before. That makes older people something incredibly valuable. Living libraries, books made of flesh and memory. The old woman points toward distant mountains, not because she can see them clearly, because she remembers them. She remembers following starving reindeer there when she was just a little girl. Everyone else argues, those mountains are too far, the journey is dangerous, weak children will never survive. The hunters insist they already searched nearby, but that's exactly the problem. Nearby has nothing left. Sometimes survival doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to the one who remembers where everyone else forgot to look. This idea sounds obvious today, but for ancient humans, it may have been revolutionary. Anthropologists have long wondered why humans live so long after having children. In most mammals, once reproduction ends, life quickly declines. From an evolutionary perspective, keeping elderly individuals alive seems expensive. They consume food, they move slowly, they require protection. Yet humans evolve differently. Women often live decades after menopause. That is extraordinarily rare in nature. Scientists call one explanation the grandmother hypothesis. It suggests that older women dramatically increase the survival of younger generations, not by giving birth, but by giving knowledge, food, experience, and childcare. Research among the Hadza people of Tanzania revealed something surprising. Older women regularly collect reliable food sources that younger mothers often cannot. While hunters sometimes return empty-handed, experienced grandmothers often provide dependable calories through roots, tubers, and edible plants. Those steady meals help entire families survive difficult seasons. In other words, the oldest members are not leftovers from evolution. They are one of its greatest inventions. Back at the frozen camp, the tribe faces a choice. Trust their strongest hunters, or trust the oldest memory. Morning comes. The tribe begins walking, not toward familiar hunting grounds, toward the mountains. The journey is brutal. Snow reaches their knees. Every step burns precious energy. Several times the younger hunters question the decision. They want to turn back. But the old woman keeps pointing forward. She recognizes shapes in the landscape nobody else notices. A broken cliff, a twisted pine, a narrow valley almost hidden beneath drifting snow. To everyone else, it all looks the same. To her, it is a map. Human memory works differently from simple facts. Neuroscientists know that emotional experiences create stronger, longer-lasting memories. Events connected to fear, survival, or loss become deeply engraved inside the brain. The terrible winter she survived as a child never left her. Every landmark remained, every decision, every mistake. Those memories now guide an entirely different generation. Days later, they reach the valley. At first, nothing. The hunters exchange disappointed looks. Then one child notices something. Tracks. Fresh tracks. Not one animal. Hundreds. The valley forms a natural shelter from the worst winter winds. Snow is shallower. Hidden grasses still survive beneath the ice. An entire herd has gathered there. The hunters stare in disbelief. They would never have searched this far. Not because they lacked courage. Because they lacked memory. Within hours, the tribe has food again. Children eat. Fires burn brighter. Life returns. The strongest hunters saved everyone. But only because someone else showed them where to hunt. That difference matters more than it first appears. Human evolution wasn't driven by muscle alone. If strength were enough, Neanderthals may still be here. If speed were enough, countless predators would rule the planet forever. Humans became extraordinary for another reason entirely. We shared information across generations. One person could survive a disaster. The next generation never had to learn that lesson the hard way again. Knowledge became inheritance, and inheritance became survival. This may be humanity's greatest superpower, not intelligence by itself. Accumulated intelligence. A child does not start from zero. They begin where their grandparents finished. Every generation climbs higher because someone below built the first steps. That idea sounds ordinary now, but in prehistoric times, it was nothing short of miraculous. And it may explain why one fragile species eventually spread across every continent on Earth. Think about your own life for a moment. Almost everything you know came from someone else. You didn't invent language. You didn't discover fire. You didn't learn which plants are poisonous by eating them yourself. Someone taught you. Now imagine if every generation had to start over. Every child would have to rediscover fire. Every family would have to relearn which berries kill and which berries feed. Every hunter would need to make every mistake from scratch. Human civilization would never exist. But our ancestors found a different path. Instead of passing down only genes, they passed down experience. That simple idea changed everything. Anthropologists call this cumulative culture. It means knowledge does not disappear when one person dies. Instead, it moves into the minds of younger people. Then those younger people add something new before passing it forward again. Generation after generation, mistake after mistake, discovery after discovery. Until eventually, stone tools become spears. Spears become bows. Villages become cities. Everything begins with memory. Back in the valley, the tribe survives the winter. The hunters finally bring home meat again. The children laugh around the fire for the first time in weeks. Everyone believes the danger has passed. But the old woman knows something else. She remembers another lesson. Animals never stay forever. The herd will leave. Winter always ends. Then comes hunger again if you are not prepared. While everyone else celebrates, she quietly begins teaching. She shows the younger women where edible roots survive beneath frozen ground. She explains how certain trees always attract birds before spring arrives. She points toward cliffs where mountain goats often return after heavy snow. None of this comes from guessing. It comes from decades of watching. Patterns, tiny details collected across an entire lifetime. Modern researchers studying indigenous hunter-gatherer societies have noticed something fascinating. The best decision makers are not always the strongest adults. Very often they are the oldest, not because they move faster, because they recognize patterns hidden across many years. A young hunter may know today's weather. An elder remembers 50 winters. That difference can determine whether a family survives. Archaeologists have discovered another clue that supports this idea. Some prehistoric skeletons reveal people who lived for years despite severe injuries, broken hips, missing limbs, blindness, diseases that should have been fatal, yet their bones healed. Someone fed them. Someone protected them. Someone believed their lives still mattered. One famous example comes from Shanidar Cave in present-day Iraq. A Neanderthal man survived serious injuries that would have made hunting almost impossible. He lived for years afterward. That means others cared for him. Food was shared. Protection was shared. Life itself was shared. For a long time, scientists believed compassion made humans unique. Now we know even our ancient relatives practiced it. But humans seem to have taken the idea even further. We didn't simply care for the weak. We learned from them. Knowledge became as valuable as strength, perhaps even more valuable. Around another fire thousands of years later, a different child asks an old man why birds suddenly disappeared from the marshes. The old man smiles. He remembers. A flood is coming. No one else sees the signs. The sky looks normal. The river looks calm, but he remembers birds behaving exactly this way decades earlier. The tribe moves to higher ground. Days later, the river explodes across the valley. Everything below disappears beneath muddy water. Again, memory saves lives. Again, the strongest muscles could never have predicted it. Only experience could. This is something scientists still observe today. Communities that preserve traditional ecological knowledge often respond better to environmental changes. Local knowledge passed through generations sometimes identifies dangers long before modern instruments do. Not because ancient people possessed magic, because they paid attention. For thousands of years. Imagine living your entire life without books, without maps, without writing. Everything your people know exists only inside human minds. Lose enough elders, and entire libraries vanish forever. How to survive drought, how to cross dangerous rivers, where animals migrate during rare climate shifts, which plants cure illness, which caves flood after heavy rain. One funeral could erase knowledge collected over 70 years. That realization changes the meaning of old age. In modern society, we often measure value through physical productivity. Can someone work? Can they earn? Can they build? Ancient humans measured value differently. Can they remember? Can they teach? Can they prevent tomorrow's disaster? Those questions kept people alive. The old woman from our story will never hunt again. She will never outrun danger. Her hands will never throw another spear. But every child sitting beside that fire carries a piece of her mind into the future. One day, those children become parents, then grandparents. The stories continue, not because they are entertaining, because forgetting them could mean death. Perhaps this is why humans became storytellers. Stories are memory wrapped in emotion. A warning is easier to remember when it becomes a tale. A lesson survives longer when it carries a face. A grandmother does not simply say, "Don't camp near the river." She tells the story of the family that disappeared when the river rose during the night. Now nobody forgets. Modern neuroscience supports this. Our brains retain information far better when it is attached to emotion and narrative. Stories are not just entertainment, they are survival technology. Long before writing, long before schools, long before history books, there were old voices speaking beside fires. Every myth carried a lesson, every legend hid practical knowledge. Every memory became another chance to survive. This may be why humans became the dominant species on Earth. Not because we were the biggest, not because we were the fastest, not because we had the sharpest teeth. We became unstoppable because every generation inherited more wisdom than the last. Our ancestors defeated time itself. Instead of letting experience disappear, they gave it away. And perhaps the greatest symbol of that victory was not a king, not a warrior, not a famous hunter. It was an old woman sitting beside a fire, remembering a path no one else could see. The next time you speak with your grandparents, or hear an older person tell the same story you've heard 100 times, remember this. For hundreds of thousands of years, people exactly like them were humanity's greatest survival tool. Before books, they were the books. Before maps, they were the maps. Before history, they were history. The strongest hunters fed the tribe for a day, but the oldest minds taught the tribe how to survive forever. And perhaps that was humanity's last hope all along.